Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar of SYMSON. Today, here on Thursday, 3 o'clock, we are completely live on LinkedIn and YouTube today to host this webinar about how to outsmart and beat competition with competitive pricing. Today, I'm here with Vincent Gedink in this webinar. We're really looking forward to this 45-minute session where we want to tell you everything about competitive pricing, how you can use it, and how you can adopt it in your organization. Later in the session, we will introduce the speakers to you. But first, let's kick off with some facts and set the scene about competitive pricing. We want to start with research that has been done by MarketTrack. And MarketTrack tells us that 86% of the customers compare prices before buying. They also did research in how big the price was, and there is a relation between the bigger the price, the more often people will compare the price of products. So, for example, if you buy a laptop that has on average a higher price, you're able to you prefer to compare prices, but when it's a lower price, you will compare the prices less. So that's the research MarketTrack does. Another thing we would like to share with you is to how do not competitive pricing. The Dutch Consumentenbond did research about the promotions they did in the supermarket sector. And last Friday, they came up with this publication, and they found out that a lot of supermarkets are promoting their prices with very competitive prices. But in the end, when the customers or the consumers want to pay these products, they seem to be higher. And some supermarkets have 30% of their products mispriced, which means that the real price was higher than the price which was advertised and also where the customer came for in the store. So that's how you shouldn't do a competitive pricing, because if your customers feel like they're not being treated fairly, they won't return and they will be disappointed. So that's another thing we want to share with you. This is a quote you probably heard more often from us. It's from Bain & Company. 1% price increase can lead to an 8% increase in operational profit. Of course, it's an average among the market because this is highly dependent on your profit of your products and of your company, and also to your cost structure. But this is like an average Bain & Company took. But there's kind of a contradict between margin optimization and competitive pricing. So that's what we see in the next slide to visualize this. So credits to our 2D artist who start visualizing this into seesaw, because when you focus more on this long-term profitability, and when you try to increase your prices to gain your profitability, they can be, on the other hand, contradict with the customer satisfaction. So if you really focus on this profitability, it could be that your customers are less satisfied because your prices are higher. And on the other hand, if you have an overinvestment in the customer satisfaction, so really focusing on this competitive pricing to have the lowest prices, or to really have an attractive price in the market, can really affect your profitability. So we believe there's always a good balance, and you're a true winner if you have a good balance between this long-term profitability of your company, but also to have a good customer satisfaction on the other hand. And that's why price optimization is so important. And that's why we also believe in a good combination between competitive pricing and other pricing strategies to make your pricing more profitable and to really make it a powerful asset in your organization. What we see at our current customers, if you have a good competitive pricing implemented in SYMSON, is that it can lead to 1 to 3% increase in revenue, but also to a 5 to 10% increase in online traffic. Because if you have attractive price, you will immediately see that in Google as well, on Google Shopping. So more people will find your store to buy the products. So to give you an example how easy it is nowadays to find the products you're looking for, and also to find the most attractive price for you as a customer, I would like to give an example. A few weeks ago, I was looking for running shoes. So I thought, hey, Nike could be a good brand for me to buy these running shoes. I was actually not aware what kind of buying shoes I want to have. But when I just put Nike running shoes in Google Shopping, I see a lot of alternatives, and I immediately also see the prices. But when going through these alternatives, yeah, I can also choose, hey, this is a kind of shoe I really like. So I can select and filter my search based on this type. And I find out that it's the Nike Revolution I want to have. And actually, I think within 1 minute you have already the shoe you like, but also you can compare the prices. So you see all the similar shoes here, but I want to have the lowest price, of course. And yeah, I scroll down to find the lowest price of this shoe, and you see there are a lot of offerings and a lot of shops that offer the same product. Um, so you see already 30 to 40 different alternatives. But within a minute, you have the shop you want. You can click on it, and yeah, with a snap of a finger, it's already ordered. And the next day, you have this shoe delivered with the most competitive price. So this is how easy it is, especially for new customers for this product, which is a very popular product. You need to have an attractive price, otherwise you will lose a new customer. In this webinar, you will learn everything about what is competitive pricing strategy, about the benefits of about competitive pricing, and after that, my colleague Vincent will talk about the competitive pricing in B2B. What are the challenges there? What are the solutions? Also in B2C, what are the challenges and the solutions? And we will end with a Q&A session. We have enough time at the end of the webinar to go through your questions. And as I already mentioned, we're completely live. So if you have any questions, you can put them on LinkedIn in the comments. And at the end of the webinar, we will go through them. So please put them there, and we have enough time to go through them. My name is Arjen Oosthoek, co-founder of SYMSON. I'm here together with Vincent Geddink, director of SYMSON. You saw him already in the beginning, and in a few minutes he will take over the floor. First, I will discuss the three factors that determine your competitive price positioning. To explain a little bit more what is competitive pricing and what are the variables you need to take into account. The first one is really the cost of a product. What kind of cost do you have in a product of this product to produce this product or to buy it at a supplier? Do you have an advantage in that? Can you buy it for a lower price than your competitors? And of course, you need on top of that, you need to have a healthy margin to come to a certain price you can put in a market. The other factor is the market factor. So how competitive is this particular product in the market? And also how many competitors can be tracked. So based on that, we can take price positioning. So the competitive of the market is a really important driver in deciding your price positioning. And the other one is the premium factor. If you have a product, if you know the cost, if you know the competitiveness of the market, you also need to know the strategy of your company. So what are the things you distinguish in the market? Is that purely the price, or do you add services, or do you add a certain guarantee for your product? This all can be values and attributes which has value in the market and where the customer wants to pay for. And that's why a premium factor can be allowed. So you don't have to be the cheapest in the market, but you can have a higher price than the benchmark price in the market. So these three factors are really important in determining what is your price positioning, which is really dependent on your company structure and company strategy. So if you know these factors and you know what can be your price positioning, you can take a look to what are your competitive pricing scenarios. And in this webinar, we will discuss 5. Going back to the example of the running shoes, you see that, for example, Zalando is a big player in the market. So we set Zalando here as the benchmark in the market. And if I'm a shop and I want to compete with Zalando, You can take, for example, the higher prices if you think I offer more value than Zalando because I have a premium factor, so I go for higher prices. It can be 5% higher, it can be 1% higher. That's really dependent on the strategy and what you think is valid. But another strategy, scenario you can take is that you go for the price matching. That you also say, okay, I offer the exact price as Zalando, but I still have components to distinguish myself from the Zalando proposition. Another scenario you can take is to purely focus on price, so to really beat Zalando here in the price. So to go, for example, 5% lower than Zalando for this particular shoe. Another strategy you can choose for is price skimming. You see that often in, for example, fashion, but also other products where they have to do with a product life cycle. So when you really are in the introduction phase, also for example for an iPhone, then the price is really high. But when you are later in the product life cycle, this price becomes lower to have more an attractive price for other customers as well and to meet more demand. Another scenario you can take is the key value item pricing. Key value item pricing is starts with deciding what are your most popular items, and for these most popular items, you offer them for a very attractive price, so that you want to attract new customers to your shop, and you try to convince them also to buy other products in their basket, so that you can make your margin on other products that are bought together. And with this strategy, you have very attractive prices for these most popular items and slightly higher prices for the rest of the items to increase the margin. So what are the benefits of this competitive pricing strategy? You can increase your traffic. What we already said in the beginning, you are able to boost your traffic because if you are scoring good on Google Shopping based upon your price, it will lead to new customers. It will improve your profit margin, but also improve your market share. And right now, I will give the floor to Vincent Geling, who will tell you everything about the importance of competitive pricing.
Yes, thank you, Arian. So we're going to discuss here the first 4 points why it is important to have competitive pricing in place. So what we see in the e-commerce scene is that we see that 90% of the startups that start in the e-commerce domain fails within the first 120 days. And mainly what we see is that one of the factors is that they are not aware of all the prices of the competitive field that are available. And therefore, they have a wrong price position. And that's one of the factors that they don't get enough liquidity in to keep the business going, and that it even costs them that much that they will fail in the first 90 days in the first 120 days of their operation. Next to that, they are not aware of the capabilities of the competitive field. And a nice example of that is, of course, Amazon. Amazon has already a kind of repricer into their platform, and they play with prices every few minutes to understand the buying decisions of the customers that are visiting their platform, and even have different segmentations of each customer that is active on the platform. So considering that field, they have a lot of more data advantage than a first starter in this environment. Next to that, as what Arian also mentioned, is that 86% of the persons who are going to buy something, if it's a B2B or B2C setting, they are going to compare different prices with each other. So it's very important to understand that if you have a higher price level than your competitor, that you should compensate it with something that you offer more than your competitors do. This can be in services, of course, or in trustworthiness, or other presentations of the products, for instance. But you have to be aware that if you ask higher prices in the same product, that you have to have a strategy to justify that you are more expensive than the other one who's offering more or less the same product in the market. And the last one is that we see in general that it is a kind of, we decide that 40% of the buying decision of a client is determined by if you can pull the attention of the buyer towards your sale location or sales channels that you have active. But 60% of the buying decision is made up on the price. So if you are doing everything right, but your price setting would be wrong, then you are still losing the deal, right? So it's equally important, I would say, but it's even more that you really have to have the right price point if you really want to make the sale and own the deal. So we are going to look in two different settings of competitive pricing. The first one we are going to address is what are the challenges of competitive pricing in a B2B environment. And after this one, we will zoom a bit more in on the challenges in the B2C environment. So if you look in the B2B environment, and this is something we deal with daily, is that there are three different levels of challenges what we need to solve. And the first one is price communication. So if you look towards the prices that companies are communicating, we see that some companies communicate their net prices, while other companies are communicating their gross prices. So sometimes we see that companies make comparisons between two different price points, and they are not equal towards each other. So this is already a challenge for some companies to deal with. Next to that, we see that before you can see prices of the competitors in the market, you have to have an account with them. So if you are selling in the B2B environment, we often see that you need to have a login. And once you are in your account, then you can see prices of the products that they are selling. So it's in transparency terms, also, this is behind a certain wall. And the final one is what we also see is that companies have different sales locations and sometimes are active in multiple countries, and that they have local sales teams that determine which price point is set in which country. And sometimes we even see that companies buy their inventory in another country because they can get a better deal, for instance, in Germany than in the Netherlands, and then just ship the inventory towards the Netherlands and consume it here. The second one is the lack of transparency. So what we also see is that sales has the freedom to negotiate. So there are some price levels already set where these products are sold for, but once the account manager visits the specific client at the table, there can be the case that they even give another 3% discount on the price that is actually communicated in the online channels or in other communication forms, of course. But at the end of the funnel, there's always a possibility to give another extra discount. And this is something, of course, that we cannot see, and we don't know how much discount is given away. So this transparency really plays a role in determining if your price levels are okay or not. And what we also see is that there are other discount manners that they work with. So one of those is, for instance, the loyalty. So how longer a client is a consumer or a buyer in the B2B environment, how more discount it gets. Furthermore, we also see that there are different segmentations in customer groups to determine how much discount they are getting. So this can be done, for instance, in the Netherlands on the SBE code. But we also see something like a small, medium enterprise strategy that companies apply. And the last one, what we also see is that there are discount schemes based on expected sales volume. So if you buy above a certain level, you get a discount of X, and if it's between this level and this level, you also get a discount. And if it's on the lowest level, then you just get the price that you see. And the last one, what we also see, this is what we call the other variables, is that there's also something like the relation. So if the B2B environment has a relation already for a longer time, the chances that you would break such a relation with a bit cheaper prices, that is not always the case, and it's more challenging to win the contract based on only price levels. Furthermore, we see that there is for sure in these times that there has to be uncertainty of the delivery. So how certain are you that you really deliver what you say you can sell? And furthermore, we see also a lot of differentiation in the additional services that companies serve other companies with. So how do we solve these problems? So in general, B2B prices are harder to acquire through all the things that we just have discussed. And we have developed 4 ways to get competitor data in. So the first one is that we can scrape the market based on AON codes, GTIN, manufacturing codes, or product names. So there are different ways to do a market search on different products and offerings to see who are the competitors in your competitor field and who is offering the product against which price. And it has different ways how we can scrape the market. So these are 4 different manners of ways how to get the data in. If these scrapes don't deliver the results that we are looking for, then we can move towards the next step, and that is direct scraping. In direct scraping, we visit the website of the competition, and we subtract the information from their website to make a competitor overview of the prices they communicate on their online channels. Furthermore, and this is kind of a challenge also for the B2B market, is that we see that the online sales platforms, what was normally used only in the B2C market, as Google Shopping or in Amazon or whatever, bol.com in the Netherlands, or in Kaufland in Germany, what we now see is that, for instance, Amazon has opened their business platform as well. What means that B2B companies are selling their inventory towards not businesses through a online platform. So in terms of transparency, once you have an account on Amazon for Business, then you have an overview of the same products that are sold in the market, and then on a general platform. So this really gives new insights in how products are priced, because if you are selling to an online platform, it's harder to intervene with an account manager or another discount approach, and there would be more transparency across prices of certain products. So that's one that you really need to take into account. And of course, we built a connection with Amazon to get that data in as well. Furthermore, the last thing that we use to get the extra data into the system is that we see that sometimes companies still communicate price lists. So each quarter or each half a year or each year, a price list is manufactured and then distributed amongst the buyers or the market. And then we can just upload these price lists into SYMSON and use it to build strategies. So how does it look for a B2B to buy something? In this case, I want to buy, for instance, a Lenovo ThinkPad, and then I look online. And this is also the steps a B2B client should take, is going to take. So they eventually visit the site of Lenovo, and then if they want to buy something, they see Lenovo Pro. And Lenovo Pro is the business side of Lenovo. And what you have to do here is, of course, you get some extra discounts for different levels that you can achieve. And once you think, all right, this is a great approach, then you have to make an account. Once you have an account, then you need to log in. And once you have passed your login, then you will see the environment and the prices that match you as a customer. So probably, it's an assumption, they are making price lists based on the segmentation of me, for instance, in this case, as a customer, and on which level they think they can attract or seduce me to buy the laptops at Lenovo instead of somewhere else. And of course, we see all kinds of services that they offer in the business domain just to persuade you to eventually buy the product at Lenovo themselves instead of another sales channel that maybe is available. So as you can see, for a B2B client, there are already, in this case, and this is a simple example, a few steps that we need to take to get insights on the pricing levels of their products. So in general, it's nice to know how the collection of data takes place and what we need to do before we can use data of different websites to start building a strategy. So as you can see here, the first thing what we do is what we call scraping. Scraping is nothing more than that we have a kind of web spider that crawls across the web and collects data, and that data comes into a kind of data sheet, and that is processed. So when we receive the data, we call it raw data, and this data needs to be cleaned to get the variables out that we can use to build strategies. So in step 2, we see that we receive raw data, and then indeed in step 3, we see that we need to clean or work on the data. So that means that we are going to subtract only the values that are used for building a strategy. And now some of these values are, for instance, the web link, if there is any stock of this particular product, what is the price of the product, are there any ship costs included or not? And maybe sometimes there's even a possibility to see extra conditions concerning the delivery time. So once the data is in, then we need to start to set up a strategy for it. And a strategy is set up by thinking about what you want to achieve, of course, with your competitor strategy. So first you think about the use case. And if you have a clear use case of product or product groups, or depending on how you are organized internally, of course, you start building the case. So once we have determined which products we are going to use for the competitive pricing, we are going to think about which data is required to determine the strategy of this use case. So we are going to check which AON codes, order lines, manufacturing codes, GTIN of product name, what what access or which kind of scraping do we need to apply to get the right data in. And the next step is what we said a bit earlier as well. We're going to analyze the data and we're going to decide on the price positioning. So it can be that you want to sell in the top of the market, or you want to serve the mid market or the low market. So depending on where your positioning of the company and the name and the services is, we decide where your price point should be. And the next step is to decide on business rules and notifications. So if you are executing a competitive price strategy and you always want to be the number 2 in the market, so the second cheapest, and you want to prevent that you get a race to the bottom with the one who wants to be also the second cheapest in the market, of course. So a business rule in this case could be, I want to play this game, but I always want to maintain 35% margin. So we can adjust prices daily, hourly, or whatever, depending on the strategy you want to execute, but it will stop always on the level that you would say, okay, this is the threshold that you cannot cross. So in this case, for instance, 35% is then the business rules that can be applied. But of course, you can get a notification out of the system. If there are some competitors in the market that are selling below your minimum margin level, then you can have like a strategical discussion if you want to lower the minimum percentage on some products that you are selling. The next step is that you then assign products to the strategy that you have built. And then, of course, these products get the strategy of the competitor set up. Next, we validate prices, of course. Before you push these prices in the market, you want to check if the strategy is delivering the results that you are looking for. Next step is that we reprice products according to the analysis that we are making and the decision you have made for the price position. And the last step is that we evaluate the results, of course, after 1 day or 1 week or 1 month, depending how long we want to take into the evaluation cycle. And if we then want to adjust the strategy, then we just start the process again, only a bit quicker, of course, because we now know how we want to address the market and we have gained our learnings to start this cycle again. So in SYMSON, it looks like this interface, what you're seeing here. It's quite simple. You just click on create a strategy box and you just drag and drop these different building blocks of the pricing strategy into it. So in the strategy blocks, you have certain parameters you can adjust. For instance, I want to have a minimum margin. Then you open the block and then you just type in how much that minimum margin has to be. So just to give you an overview of how it works in SYMSON, and this is quite simple. You just open a strategy box, drag and drop your building blocks into it, and then adjust the parameters within the blocks according to your business needs and desires. So the next step is to summarize more or less how we take this approach so that you have a summary out of it. So the first step that we are going to do to build a successful strategy is to determine what your price position is. So this is depending on, of course, the quality of the product, the price positioning, which group you want to address, and what kind of sales channel you are approaching. The next step is that you are going to think about what kind of data do we need to get in to get a great price positioning. So are you selling your own products, or are you a reseller of a certain product? Is it a commodity product or not? So these different settings can be taken into account to think about what kind of data we need to collect. So do we need to apply direct scraping, or can we, for instance, use Aon, or do we need manufacturing codes or whatever? Then we determine on the KPI. So what is it that you want to achieve with this strategy? Do you want to gain more deals? Do you want to gain a bigger market share? Do you want to have a better price positioning? So there can be certain KPIs you want to achieve. And then the next step is to set up the strategy within SYMSON. And finally, of course, we look at prices and we adjust them frequently to make sure you have the winning strategy. So then we move towards the B2C market. So we close the B2B and move to the B2C. If we look in the B2C market, we see a few challenges here. So we did a lot of different exercises here with the clients that we have onboarded already. And we do it also on an international field. So what we see is that if we look at the B2C market, we see that there is like a private label and competitors who sell their products not via online platforms. So for instance, you have a private label that you can sell, but you can also have a product that you sell, and another company sells a lookalike product, but they don't make use of online sales platforms as a Google Shopping or, for instance, Amazon. So it's harder to subtract the information, and we really need to know the source of the location where they are selling these products so that we can start mapping them and take the data into account. Furthermore, we see that not all shops are relevant to benchmark your prices with. So what we see is, for instance, in the time of Corona, a lot of people started a web shop from their home. These are, of course, in your competitive field, but their operational costs are way lower than the one that you probably have as a business. So what you want to do, you want to eliminate the outliers of the price points to be certain that you are really competing in the field that you want to compete with. Of course, these other offers in the market are entities you have to deal with, but probably their inventory is so low because they have low operational cash flows that they cannot have the level of inventory that you have. So they are only in the market for a short term of time. And that is something you want to take into account when you build a different strategy. Furthermore, we see that some of our clients also want to see if they can enter the Chinese market or the Russian market or other markets more in India. And the challenge that we find here is that if you want to move into China, it's really hard to get competitive data because also for the consumer market, everything is behind logins. So if you go to Taobao of Alibaba, you see that you need logins to collect certain data points, and it's quite good. They have a quite good defense on it. Furthermore, we also see in the Russian market that if you want to sell there, but I don't know if it's still applicable if we want to go with business in that area. But we see there that, for instance, web pages are very big. So to get the data in, we have to pay a lot of money to analyze the data that is in these websites. So it's sometimes the exertion of getting the prices costs more than the actual result we are going to achieve. So then we, of course, do not pursue this strategy. And what we also see, if a country has a really poor infrastructure, then we see that it takes quite some time before a website, for instance, is loaded, and then before we can subtract the information, then our web services already run into a timeout, and then we cannot subtract this information. So the internet infrastructure is also a key element in executing and receiving and finding the right competitive data. Furthermore, of course, we see that in some cases, commodity markets are going that hard that it is really a race to the bottom, so that you are pushed more or less into the corner that you have to lower prices and operate on minimum margins. What is not always the ideal situation, of course, for businesses to survive. So although prices in the B2C area are easier to acquire, we have 4 ways to do so. So what we see in the B2C market, of course, that a lot of products are scraped based on aeons, and direct scraping is the other method that we apply. So aeon is something you can really trace quite easily on Google Shopping, Amazon, and other sales platforms. And if we look more into the direct sales channels of the businesses themselves, then we can apply direct scraping. It's the same methodology that is used in the B2B environment. Furthermore, we see that we can use external resources. So if you have a specific location or a domestic sales platform that is active, then we can also can also connect to these platforms and get that information in to set you up for the pricing strategy there. We can also help you to follow only selected competitors. So you can only adjust your prices. For instance, if you combine them to a certain key competitor, this can be done on a product level, but also on a product group level, and also as a company as a whole. So you can just determine yourself how deep you want to go with your competitive pricing setting. And furthermore, we have, of course, the business rules in place to help you to avoid a race to the bottom strategy, so that at a certain point you quit lowering your prices because it would harm you too much in your profitability of the operation. So comparing the B2B to the B2C environment, if we want to buy the same Lenovo laptop in the B2C environment, we go to the Lenovo search in Google Shopping, for instance, and then we also see, hey, this is where the place where these Lenovos are made and sold. That is on their own website. And then we are going to look at the name and put it in Google Shopping. And in Google Shopping, we analyze the different products, of course, which one do we want to buy, and we compare, of course, the prices of this certain product. Once we have found the product, we can just select the one that is most cheaply offered, and then we select this one and buy the product. So as you can see from consumer perspective, they don't have to log in. In this case, we just can trace this laptop based on the name, product name, or even the GTIN or Aeon, as we said. And once we have found the right product, we can just select the one with the cheapest price and buy it. This is for us very nice, of course, to show it in this example, because it shows you how easy it is actually for the consumer market to be traced compared to the B2B, what is a bit more complex. Yeah, and the final question that we often get from clients that we have here that have physical stores and online stores. How do I apply such a strategy in my physical store and in my online store? So what we see is these digital price cards, as you can see here. We replace actually the physical ones for the digital ones, and then digital ones can just be connected to the server, of course. So once we have the right prices in, we can reprice the prices in your shop as well, so that you have different sales prices or the same competitive sales prices in your online channels and physical stores. And as what we have learned till today is that it doesn't really matter if you are selling the products in your physical stores for a higher price than in your online store. So the comparison between physical and online, it seems to be very low, and consumers accept, for instance, in a physical store that prices are a bit higher than in the online store. But it just gives you an idea that the combination of the technology in the online environment and in the physical environment are not that far apart. So it can be applied in both environments. So if you like to have a more and deeper understanding how competitive pricing can be applied in your business environment, then we can schedule, of course, a personalized demo and see how we can set up competitive pricing for your business. So if you want to make an appointment for it, here down below, you see in the screen that we can make a personalized demo via symson.com/demo. So you can leave your contact details there, and we will make sure that we come in contact and plan an event with each other. And next to it, you will see here my QR code of my LinkedIn, so we can connect there, and I will just follow up with you through the chat on LinkedIn, so that we can make a appointment. Yeah, if you have any questions, then I think we can move to the Q&A. So if you have any questions regarding competitive pricing, then this is the time to ask them.
Yes. Thanks, Vincent, for the explanation. I saw some questions popping up in the comments. One question was from Atbak. He asks, can your product also elicit the communication strategy? For example, is this price gross or net? I'm not sure if I understand fully this question, but at SYMSON, we can optimize gross and net prices. More for the B2B, we have a number of net prices, of course, and also gross prices. And for B2C, we have a lot of consumer prices, so retail prices we optimize. And of course, it can also elicit the communication strategy, especially when you have a price, for example, key value item pricing. When you want to have a very low attractive price for your key value items, and then try to convince the customer to buy more products to increase the total basket size and to increase the overall margin per customer. But I think in your case, it could also be that you want to attract the price of a certain product, and later in the journey you want to try to upsell this customer with other products. So I think your answer is yes. And if this not was a complete answer, maybe we can talk about this after this webinar. Another question is from Victor. He says, I don't have any idea what should be my price positioning. Can you help me with deciding what should be the optimal price positioning? Vincent?
Yes, I would say it's a discovery, of course, what the ideal position would be. But I can imagine that if you, for instance, enter a new market, or you have a new product that you want to do a scrape in the market to see how lookalike products are priced, or if you are in an existing market with an existing product to see how your competitors are pricing the same product. So we can help you in the first phase to get an understanding of what your price level should be. And then we can do like experimentations to see at what price position you are selling the most products. So to give you an example, we had one for makeup. If you sell something for the beauty, in the beauty industry, to say it in such a way, we see that the lowest price position was the less attractive one to have your product priced upon. So you rather be like the fourth or the fifth cheapest in the market instead of the real cheapest, because the consumer had the idea that they really were buying rubbish. So having the lowest price is not always the ideal position, and that was a great learning for us all.
Thanks for the answer, and also thanks for the question, Victor. Another question, I think that's also for you, related to your story, Vincent. Are competitive prices limited to a particular country or region?
Question. Are they limited to a country of region? It depends, right? What we normally see is that it is really important to follow the competitor prices that are in your competitive field. So which ones are really influencing your domain of sales? And if they're out your domain of sales, then rather don't take them into account. Because it doesn't deliver you the value, or you're lowering prices with competitors that are not really the competitors in your area. So what we normally see at this level is that the most companies ask us to do a competitor strategy on a country level or on a certain marketplace level.
Right. I see here another question from Beatrice. Her question is, what about products that don't have competitors? That's a really good question. I think, as Vincent already mentioned, we also have a lot of B2B customers, and B2B environments are often limited in having competitive prices. And of course, if you have, for example, private label, it is hard to compare it to A brands in your market. So it really depends on your assortment. If you have a selection of products that is suitable for competitive pricing, then we can track the competitive pricing so that you can take your positioning. But for the other, for example, 19-80%, SYMSON can help you to apply different strategies. For example, a basic cost-based strategy that's automated, but also price elasticity strategy, or another optimization strategy. You can apply in SYMSON so that all prices have a good price and are optimized in price, even though you don't have competitive prices. I think there is still time for one last question. How do we evaluate if the competitive price was good? That's also a good question. I think you're probably meaning something in if the quality is good or if the accuracy is good. Vincent, do you want to go into?
I think we can answer it in two directions, right? So the quality of the price level can of course be evaluated just to check what is the output of SYMSON. We also give you always a link. For instance, if we have found the prices in an online channel, so that you can double check the data that we have found for you, so that it is never a question mark where the data positioning is coming from. And the other one, of course, is if you want to evaluate if the price setting you have made is really making a difference in the number of sales, or maybe it helps you a bit in the margin setting that you are making on certain products. And of course, we can evaluate different positionings that you have had with your product and see on which level you are selling the most. And then, straighten up the strategy to make sure that you are always selling on a sweet spot competitor position to make the most deals.
Yes, thank you for all the questions. Probably if you have more questions, or if we couldn't answer all the questions you have, we can also answer them after this demo. So there's enough room for walking through your questions at a later moment. But thanks for this interactivity. We want to close down this webinar. We have 1 minute to go, so we are exactly on time. We want to close down with this meme. I think you heard a lot of pricing strategies, factors you can take into account, but probably you feel like Jackie Chan of this webinar. Okay, what is for me the best pricing strategy to apply? No worries, we have a lot of content we can help you with. We have even a pricing strategy overview page on our website where we explain this pricing strategy of competitive pricing, but also all the other pricing strategies in detail. And of course, we are there to help you. You can schedule a demo with Vincent or me, and then we can discuss in a later moment what would be a suitable price positioning or price strategy to apply for your company. Thanks for joining. We really enjoyed this webinar. We're looking forward to the next one, and we look forward to continue this conversation about price optimization and competitive pricing in the future. So on behalf of Vincent, thanks for joining, and we look forward to see you in person.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.